In this global race for AI dominance, there's a new powerhouse making a seriously bold move. We're talking about India. They're literally building their own AI future from scratch, and their blueprint, well, it could change the game for everyone. So let's break down exactly how they're pulling this off. So the question is just, it's huge, right? How does a nation with 1.4 billion people build an AI future that is truly 100% its own? One where its data, its economy, its entire destiny isn't just handed over to foreign tech giants. Well, India has an answer, and it's a strategy they call sovereign AI. All right, so here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the grand vision. Then we'll see how it impacts everyday people, specifically farmers. After that, we'll dive into the economic engine behind it all, this global cloud hub. We'll check out Microsoft's massive bet on this, and then finally, we'll pull it all together to see what this digital sovereignty future really looks like. Okay, first up, the grand vision. And let's be super clear here. This isn't just about, buying some new software or building a couple of cool apps. No, no, no. This is a fundamental root and branch rethinking of the entire country's digital backbone. And it's all built around one core principle. And that core principle? It's sovereign AI. And look, the idea is actually pretty simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It's all about creating a completely self-reliant ecosystem. The main goal is to make sure that the AI tech, and maybe even more importantly, all that massive data that fuels it, all of it is developed, managed, and controlled inside India's own borders. And look, this isn't just some pie-in-the-sky idea they're talking about. The government actually made it official policy in its budget. They declared this massive strategic shift from being what they call data scarce to becoming a sovereign AI nation. You can basically think of this as the starting gun firing for this entire race. Okay, so a grand vision is one thing, right? But what does it actually mean for people on the ground? For that, we've got to look at the absolute heart of the Indian economy, agriculture. We're talking about the hundreds of millions of farmers who literally power the country. And this is where we get to see a program called Bharat VISTAAR in action. The best way to think about it is like a super smart assistant for the entire agricultural sector. It's designed to do two huge things: break down language barriers and put expert knowledge right into the hands of millions of farmers. So how does this whole thing actually work? Well, it's a pretty simple but brilliant three-step process. Step one, it pulls together just massive amounts of agricultural data from all over. Step two, it uses AI to crunch all that data and give specific, localized advice to each farmer, about their soil, their local weather, their crops. And step three, and this is key, if the AI can't answer something, it connects them directly to a real, live human expert. And really, it's the details here that make this so powerful. First, it's integrating official government data, like land maps, with proven scientific farming techniques. Then, it delivers all this info through AI chatbots on apps people already use, like WhatsApp, and in their own local language. This is huge for closing that digital divide, that gap between the digital world and what's happening on the ground. And maybe most importantly, that direct link to the call center means a farmer is never more than a couple of taps away from getting help from a real person. But okay, let's pause for a second. A vision this big, powering AI for literally hundreds of millions of people, that takes a colossal amount of computing power. We're talking data centers, lots and lots of them. So the big question is, how on earth does India plan to build the economic engine to make all this happen? Well, the answer starts with a single number, 21, as in 21 years. The government has rolled out a 21-year tax holiday for any company building global cloud infrastructure in India. And let me tell you, that's not just some small incentive. That is a massive long-term commitment, basically screaming, hey, biggest tech players in the world, come build here. And the potential payoff from this move? It's just staggering. I mean, experts are projecting that this one policy could unlock somewhere between $70 to $100 billion in new investments. A number like that, wow, it doesn't just get people's attention, it literally redraws the entire global tech map. So the whole strategy here is to create an environment for investment that's just irresistible and, crucially, predictable. That 21-year tax holiday, that's the giant welcome mat at the front door. But they're also doing other smart things, like reforming safe harbor rules to prevent legal headaches, and even giving a little extra support for companies that warehouse their electronics here. It's basically a full-court press to make India the easiest, most attractive place on the planet to build out cloud infrastructure. So, the big question is, did it work? Is this strategy actually paying off? Well, let's just say the first big piece of evidence is in, and it's a massive validation from the private sector. We're talking about Microsoft's enormous bet on India's future. Just look at that number for a second. $17.5 billion. This is Microsoft's direct response to India's new policies. It's a huge commitment to build what they're calling a sovereign-ready hyperscale backbone, which is basically a fancy way of saying the superpowered network of data centers you need to run an entire nation's AI ambitions. And just to put that number into perspective for you, this is the largest investment Microsoft has ever made in Asia. Ever. And this isn't some vague promise for someday in the future. Nope. This is a concrete plan that's set to roll out between 2026 and 2029. It's happening. And what's really cool is that this investment isn't just about servers and buildings. It's about people. Microsoft has actually doubled down on its pledge and is now aiming to train 20 million Indians in AI skills by 2030. And you can see from the numbers, they're not just talking a big game. They're already well on their way, with 5.6 million people trained so far. That's a huge head start. All right, so let's bring this all home. We've seen the grand vision, we've seen a real-world example with farmers, we've looked at the economic engine, and we've seen a massive private investment come in. So what is the ultimate goal here? What's the end game? Well, it all comes back to that big idea, realizing the dream of digital sovereignty. And this, right here, is where all that infrastructure meets the individual person. All this new computing power is being plugged directly into national platforms like E-Shram, which serves, get this, 310 million informal workers. For them, this isn't abstract stuff. It means getting real job recommendations, help with writing a resume, or just getting support in their own language, all powered by AI. I mean, these aren't just little features on an app. These are tools for economic empowerment on a scale that's almost hard to imagine. So how do they maintain control over all of this? Well, it's pretty clever. They're basically building two different flavors of these sovereign clouds. You've got one, the sovereign public cloud, for really sensitive stuff, like government and regulated industries. Then you have the sovereign private cloud. But here's the thing, both of them share that one core principle we talked about, keeping Indian data on Indian soil, with all the security and compliance rules baked right in from the start. Which brings us to our final, and I think most fascinating question. When you combine these massive economic incentives with real-world applications that actually affect hundreds of millions of people, well, it looks like India is writing a completely new playbook. So you have to wonder, is this top-down, all-in strategy the new blueprint for what it means to be a digital nation in the 21st century?